Hi, it's Dr. Parikh. Welcome to Writing in Psych in spring 2021. I am teaching this course fully remote. This course actually works pretty well in a remote format um, because I have the online course. I've run the online course for 3 years now because I started when I was pregnant and my kid's turning 3. So I've run it for 3 years over 7 or 8 semesters total because I've taught it in the summer sometimes too. So I have a lot of experience with running this course online. The course has videos built. So it was already, I was running it as a flipped classroom where my in person students were using the videos. And I was running it where students brought in finished drafts of assignments and we went over the drafts in class. So it's active. It's, I think, a little easier than trying to stay engaged for a lecture. I mean, you still have to watch stuff, but it's pre recorded at least. So you get flexibility with that. And I think it's a lot easier than trying to get a discussion going because when we're talking about a specific paper that's up in front of us. I am doing a few things differently this semester than I did in the fall or in the second half of the spring. I am requiring attendance. This course in the fall I didn't, and it worked okay ish. But I I think it can be a lot better if we get back to more of a true hybrid between in person and distance learning. So I am going to go over if you're pretty good with Blackboard, you can probably poke around and find most things you need. But I do have really thorough how-to videos for Blackboard, for Google Docs. That one's a little older, so my Google Docs looks a bit different, but Google Docs works the same way. Um, my syllabus, I have a really thorough overview. So here I'm really just going to hit on the stuff that's most relevant for remote learning. So this is really just a spring 2021. I'm using my 025 course shell thingy, um, but the course is almost identical for 025 and 026. And you're on the same day. You're both Tuesday, Thursday. So you have the same days off. Things are pretty identical there. So modules, the biggest difference between the online and in person is that your modules uh, run 2 weeks ish. It's not a really hard and fast uh, division, and sometimes there's a little overlap. So it's not always ideal. So you have this little disclaimer up here that sometimes things are a little different. And oh, these still say, oh no, I'll have to redo that one. Oh no. All right, let me just check because I want to make sure that this is functional for you guys. Oh, that's not great, but good enough for now. Oh, I know what that is. I will deal with this later. Okay. But you still have your modules list, and here I've taken off the due dates. Part of it is for a twice a week class, there's just a lot more variability in when things are due, and a lot can throw off the schedule. And in Blackboard, it's super easy for me to adjust things. So if we go into calendar, I can just drag and drop. So if I realize that I didn't give you enough time between assignments, or maybe let's say something I don't even know. The bar is very high right now. But let's say something really unusual happens that probably affects everybody at the same time. I might change a due date. You can see some of these are due right now. It's set to 10 a.m. If you're in the 12:30 class, I will change it to 12 or 11:30 class. I will try to change those to 11:30, but some of them are expected to be done when you walk into class. And if you do them after class, I will typically still give you some feedback on them, but not class credit. That sounds like I'm being a big hairy jerk, and You may believe that, but what I've found is that when I don't require things to be due at the beginning of class, very few people come into class with it done. And the structure of the class is that you learn in class by me correcting. I've already told you how to do the thing. And I know it's hard because it feels like you don't know what you're doing. What I found is students felt the same way when I explained it in class. They still felt like they didn't know what to do and what they were doing. And so I spent the class trying to explain the assignment, and then I would give all my feedback through Blackboard, but sometimes students would be their first attempt would have some real issues. And it's difficult to resolve that in writing. And so I'd have students falling behind because their first attempt would be pretty far off and they wouldn't have time with me to clarify it. So the idea here is that your first try is on your own with my guidance over a video. And then we meet and I tell you what you did well and what you didn't. The downside is I could easily spend an hour with each of you every week. I could probably actually spend 2 hours with each of you most weeks. That's just not physically possible. And to have any kind of reasonable boundaries for my time. And so instead, what I do is I do small group feedback. When you don't attend class, you miss out on a lot of that nuance. I often will still give rubric feedback. That's kind of the norm. Sometimes I'll give a few comments, but that takes me a lot longer than to give the feedback in class. Also, the benefit of small group is that you get to hear feedback on the mistakes you made and the mistakes your peers made. You also get to see what you did well and what your peers did well. And so I think it's a really nice way to get more input as you're learning. And so if you're not in class, you obviously only get to hear what you did well or poorly. So things that say 10 a.m. or 11:30, if you're in the other class, I enforce that very strictly. A minute or two late, I'll take it. 20 minutes late, I probably won't. And we'll see that often I will meet with, I'll divide the class in half, and so you'll only go one day that week. Even if, let's say, the assignment is due on Tuesday, but your class doesn't meet until Thursday, I'm going to be a stickler for that Tuesday due date just because I don't know how to do it any other way and avoid chaos. Because it seems really unfair to me that some people have a Tuesday deadline and some people have a Thursday deadline in the same class. So logically, I need some people to have it due on Tuesday. I'm going to require that everybody has it due on Tuesday. And if that seems really unfair to you, then I recommend you sign up for the Tuesday class so at least you feel like the due date is for a reason. At the same time, when I'm giving feedback, I'm usually using Google Docs. I recommend that while you're listening to your peers getting feedback, you are editing your Google Doc so that by the time I see it, you've already fixed some of the easy problems. You will upload a PDF or a Word version up into Blackboard. That's required for me to be able to use a rubric of any kind, and it creates a record of how your document looked at class time. Because if you if you link me to a blank document at 10 o'clock and you furiously work while I review your peers and you're the last one to go and you have what looks like a completed assignment, that might be fine every now and then, but if everybody starts doing that, I can't run the class the way I want to. And the way that I have found, not just what's my preference, but what I've found to work best with my style. Because, we're all individuals with styles. I can't teach not my style. I am who I am. Uh, Things that say 11 o'clock just mean that evening. So it could be 11:50, it could be 2 or 3 a.m. I prefer that you sleep, but I'm not going to hold tight to a midnight. I just mean sometime that night. If you turn it in like 9 a.m. the next day, that's considered late. And again, there's very little that I take late in this course. I talk about that a little more in some other things. So module to-do list, it just doesn't have it. Oh, I need to set that to open in a new window. The module to-do list is almost the same, just without due dates, but the remote meeting schedule is completely different. So this tells you when our class is meeting. I'm going to try to manage this through the Google Calendar invites too. But it's a little tricky because sometimes, so the highlighted yellow days are days that the whole class is meeting. So you'll notice everyone is expected to be there some Tuesdays and some Thursdays. I do not recommend that you tell your boss, I can work every Thursday because I'm in the Tuesday class. That would not be great for you because you would miss some important class time. Um, you might say, I can take some Thursday shifts. Uh, it's also good because let's say you are sick one day. If there's space, I might let you join one of the other classes. So let's say you missed the Tuesday, you might be able to join the Thursday. Remember though, if you don't turn in the assignment on the due date, if your assignment is late, even if you're in Group B or Group A, sometimes Group B actually meets before Group A because of the way our school closures go. If you're in the second group to meet, you still have to have your assignment in on time to get credit for it. The policy is very strict. Assignments are typically only worth 10 to 20, maybe, there's a few 30-point ones out of 1,000 points in the class. It's not the end of the world if you miss a couple here and there, but if you are chronically late, it's going to be really hard to be successful in the class. So there are some days the whole class meets. The rest of the time, I will have signups of some sort, probably through Google Docs, because that's usually how my brain works, uh, for which day of the week. What I might do is send out a form saying, I prefer Tuesdays, I prefer Thursdays, or I don't have a preference, so that I know. Because if it doesn't really matter much to you, then I would like to give preference to the people who have work or family or class schedule or something that works differently. There's also a couple periods. So for the literature review paper, my online class gets the option of a video or a meeting. You do not. You get a meeting. Uh, I use some time during class time to make that happen. I will also have a lot of other openings in my schedule. If you let me know at least a week in advance and you suggest a few different days and times, if you absolutely cannot make any of the options I have, we can work something out. Um, this day that we're technically closed, I'm going to try really hard to take most of the wellness days to truly take off, catch up, catch my breath. In this case, my child is on spring break this week, so I will likely offer fewer sessions this week and more sessions later to make up. Also, the biggest assignments, the literature review paper, the research proposal, those I will take late with a 5% per day penalty because I certainly don't want anyone to lose 100 or 150 points at a go. I purposely keep the assignment values a little lower so that you have so that you can miss one or two without it being really that big of a deal. Although the funny thing is, almost nobody turns the papers in late because you've got almost the entire thing done several days ahead of time through the assignments of the course. So almost no one is late with that paper. What else? What do I have showing here? Okay, this is our class. So normally for an in-person class, I typically stick to the days of the class, but with this running as kind of a hybrid, that didn't really make a lot of sense for me. So I have, let me see, I think I'm going to have to pull this over and I'll see if I can show my face a little bit. I'm just going to scoot my computer a little. There we go. So this one, the downside is that I have things spread out over several days. I know that can be a little confusing. You may want to make your own list of when things are due. I don't do that in part because if I change something, I have a hard time remembering to change it everywhere. So I've learned that listing things in one place is best. If I change something, it's always going to be to give more time. So if I realized that I didn't give enough time for something, I will move that back a little bit. Um, so yeah, you see throughout. And I will also try really hard. If I have accidentally scheduled something to be due on a mental health day, let me know because I know the ones in our schedule. I don't know the Monday, Wednesday, Friday ones. And I will consider pushing that back at least a day. I typically avoid the weekends. I think the one exception I made was, let's see, that I might have just forgotten to put where it needs to go. I think that can probably go right here. I think so. Some of these due dates might look a little different by the time you get to them because I need to go through at least one more time to figure out if it all makes sense. What else is unique for you guys? So the calendar is a little bit of a beast. And it's my best, really, it's my best effort to try to make it so that most of you only have to come in 1 day a week. It means I'm teaching both days, um, but I think it will let us do more in person feedback, more depth of feedback. What I will probably do, I'm not, this will likely change a little as we go, but my plan is to offer, my brain just froze. My plan is that I'll divide you into even smaller groups. So my goal is to have you each in a group of about 4 people. And what I'll do is I'll use breakout rooms through, probably still through Google Meets. But I'll use breakout rooms so that we do one group of 4 people and another group of 4 people. I think that smaller size, that was one thing that was missing in the fall because I just did 1 day a week with everybody at once, and very few people wanted to go. I'm going to have much more of a push, just like I do in person classes, for each person, uh, like face to face on campus in the before times classes, for each person to share in the group. I know that I'm asking you for a lot of vulnerability. I also am very careful in how I give feedback. I work to be constructive and to focus on strengths. And when we discuss weaknesses, to normalize it. We all make mistakes. We all learn things. Uh, we all learned things somewhere. And so I think it's really, really valuable. I believe in the value of seeing each other's feedback. I also believe that I can give a lot more information when I give it to 4 people at a time, because I don't have to say, many of you make the same mistakes over and over. And so I don't have to explain it from scratch every time. So this kind of balances for me. So what I'll probably do is have breakout rooms. I often will start a class with some announcements or asking about general questions. I don't think I'm going to have you sign up for like the first half of class and the second half of class, but do expect that for classes marked A and B, you are going to have 20 to 30 minutes, maybe a little more, that you're just sitting in a breakout room. If you are in the first group to go, I'm probably still going to ask you to keep it open, so that because sometimes I realize something really important to tell you while I'm working with the other group. So I'm going to start and end each class together, but expect that you will have time in the middle to work on writing and psych, work on other courses, take a break and eat your lunch, whatever you need to do. You'll have some time, almost half the class, on days marked A and B. Research questions, I'm going to do more of a general principles. I might not give feedback for each individual. And partly I was just trying to fit things into the schedule with our closures, because we have 4 days off, and it's a little odd. And again, things that I used to spend 1 day on, I'm now spending 2. I've had to juggle a few things in the schedule to make it work. Um, and then there's also a day it's fully what questions you ask me. So I don't have a plan. There's not breakout groups. Down here, methods and results. You're not writing a method and results section for your paper this semester. That's part of me trying to scale down the expectations a little bit, understanding that there is a pandemic on and it's sadly infecting. I meant to say affecting many of us in many ways. So I'm recognizing that. And that is, when I approach this course, I am adjusting a lot of things before you see the course. So this day is when we're going to talk about what goes there, because later on in your courses, you're going to be expected to know how to do that. And then we'll also have, kind of just like for the literature review, we'll have a final research proposal time for you to just come in and ask any questions you have before you turn it in. The 8th and the 15th, no one will meet for class, but you will have an individual meeting with me sometime in those weeks. And I'll tell you a little more about that as we get closer. And then the final exams, the schedule isn't up yet, but your final exam period will have appointments for optional not drop-ins, optional appointments to review your paper or to talk about, especially if you want to go to grad school, that could be a great time to just schedule time to talk with me about how to work on your writing. How do you stand compared to others, in terms of readiness for graduate work, and how can you build up to where you need to be? If you are not a psych major, think really hard about whether you want to stay in this course. This is an intense course. It assumes that you've had at least general psychology. And it really is preparing you for a very specific style of writing. So even if you're a great writer in general, if you do amazing creative writing or argumentative essays, that doesn't mean you necessarily have the skills and the style you need for this type of writing. This is a very objective, concrete, clear, concise, scientific way of writing. And so if you have interest in going to graduate school for a science field, this might be really helpful. Um, like science or social science, this is a really good course. If you are, if you're just interested in different types of writing, this might be a good one. But if you just need a writing intensive course, this may not be your best option. I suspect that this is a little more uh, field specific than most of the writing and a little fewer transferable skills. At the same time, I think you will get a lot out of it. But there's a difference between at the end looking back and saying, well, I did get something out of it, and starting at the beginning and saying, this is an experience I want. I will get enough out of this to be worth going through it. So if you have questions about that, shoot me an email, let me know. Since we became writing intensive, and especially now that we're online writing intensive, I get a lot of non majors in here, and many of them realize that it wasn't really what they thought it would be. And I would like you to find that out as early as possible so you can get out, you can get into a course during the add drop period that's going to be a better fit for you, and maybe someone else who needs this course can get in. I think that's it. Oh, I forgot to say, I'm really excited you're here. I love teaching this course. I love watching you grow. I love the interaction. I love the communities that form. I, with the pandemic, I started having the discussion boards in for the in person uh, sections, and I think I'm going to keep doing it because I think it's easier to connect in that format in a lot of ways. And particularly last semester, I might choke up a little. A lot of students told me how meaningful it was to them to have a space to just check in with other people and just talk about whatever. And it's this, not just having a space, but having a space where I give you course credit for being a little bit social with your peers. If you are having a rough week, it's fine to just say, I'm having some difficulties. I'm hoping to be back on track soon. Um, I also have had students who, in these forums, these check-in forums, talk about really difficult things that are happening and get support from their peers. So it's always up to you what you want to talk about there, and it can be life stuff, it can be course stuff. It's just a required place to form a little bit of community because in a course like this, I think that personal connection and that community is really important. Um, I actually, I'm just realizing I may wait to set groups until I figure out A's and B's and try to have you. So I actually might have four groups so that I have two A groups and two B groups. I may change this to say A, B, and C, D. All sorts of crazy things happening. Um, yeah, I think that's it. I got distracted because I said crazy things and I try really hard. I'm trying to stop using words like crazy and psycho. I talk about it when I talk about naming your groups, the small groups I was just mentioning, to avoid those because that stigmatizes mental health issues. And then I did it by accident and got distracted. Uh, which is a moment of vulnerability, which is important because this is a class where you have a lot of vulnerability with me. And so I try really hard to also have some vulnerability and transparency with you, which is why I try to put my face on things, even though I can tell it is very, very red right now because I'm a little bit warm and I'm talking, and that's what happens. And it runs red anyway. And I did not pick the pink color behind me, but we haven't changed it yet. There's all sorts of things, and I'm not wearing earrings. I'm very unhappy about that. I usually wear earrings when I make videos. You'll notice I've some of the most recent videos I've stopped including my face on because I have to. It's tough to be on camera all the time, which is another thing that's really tough about our classes. I really like it when y'all are on camera, especially when I'm talking about your paper, but I as I'm on camera more, my self-consciousness is growing. You can see I have a ring light because my lighting was always awful. It also came with a selfie stick, so it was really more about the stick because we're never out where other people can take our pictures and we have no family pictures and it's a whole thing. But anyway, now I'm rambling. So I'm going to say I look forward to meeting you all. I wish you the best and I will see you soon. Take care. Bye bye.